thanks so much for joining me, man. And we're grateful for what you've done here at Glockner.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. And the last 22 years with Glockner, for anybody that's interested, it has been a wonderful ride for 22 years. I couldn't expect any more and receive any more love and appreciation than the Glockner family.
My favorite thing that Andy Glockner has ever told me is just relating to like how he thinks they've been successful here is just surround yourself with good people.
New Local Legends Podcast. Real small town success stories.
You have quite the lineups.
We believe that if people know better, they can do better.
When you kissed me by the river.
Sponsored by Glockner Enterprises.
Best pies are made at Glockner Chevrolet.
Time to turn.
Rich Moon.
Welcome to the Speakeasy.
The amount of love and compassion.
The hope that's been bubbling up in the last few years.
The finer things about Portsmouth.
You just don't see that everywhere.
Local legends only.
Welcome back to the Local Legends Podcast. This is episode 48, and I'm in the Glockner Speakeasy with a longtime employee, Bill Bloss. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for making the drive down, my man. Why don't you just start by introducing yourself and what you do?
Hi, this is Bill Bloss, and I'm currently retiring from the Glockner Oil Company in Piketon, Ohio.
This is, your very last day, correct?
Monday will be my final day.
Wow.
Monday will be the final day after 22 years with Glockner Oil Company.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us and tell your story, Bill. I think it's important that people coming up in the ranks and maybe just starting their journey with Glockner or a couple years in, midway, whatever, that they get to hear your experience and how you succeeded here.
Well, it's kind of a fairy tale story. I don't know where you want me to start. Start with Glockner's or start how I...
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you grew up and just go from there.
All right. I'm a farm boy. I grew up on a farm in southeast Nebraska in a little town of Pawnee City. And by the way, there's only one Pawnee City in the whole United States. But grew up in Pawnee City on a farm. And after graduation from high school, I done road construction, driving heavy equipment for a couple of years. And the construction business not being a very stable, I mean, you're laid off in the wintertime and you work in the summertime when it wasn't raining and everything else that can curtail construction. I was going to get married and decided that that part-time, full-time construction work wasn't going to feed a family. So went to a town of Lincoln, Nebraska, the capital of Nebraska, and went to work at a tire store, a B.F. Goodrich tire store. And I mean, while it was fun and learning experience, it was something I knew I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. And so I went across town to another tire company. It was called OK Tire and Rubber. OK Tire stores were known for rebuilding tires and recapping tires. And they had a new tire line that this owner of this particular tire store was wanting to get out. He wanted to be a distributor. And I worked behind a counter for like 6 months or something like that. And he asked me if I wanted to go out on the road and sell tires. And I said, sure. So he buys me a new pickup truck and sends me out on the road selling tires. And one of the accounts was another tire distributor or another tire dealer that I was calling on. And I ran into several times, the OK Tire sales rep. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, that's what I'd like to be someday, is one of them traveling salesmen, where I didn't have to load tires on a pickup truck, deliver and unload and all that sort of stuff. And lo and behold, now I knew him for a year or so, and seen him at lunch one time, and he says, why don't you and I go to lunch? Well, okay, that's fine. So at lunch, he's like, Bill, they're promoting me to a regional manager, and would you want to do my job? Well, after all, that's kind of what I've been looking at and wanting to do. I said, provided the money is right, yeah, I'd take a swing at it. So everything turned out to be good. The home office for OK Tire and Rubber Company was in Ashland, Kentucky. So I think I was probably with the OK Tire and Rubber Company out of Ashland, Kentucky for about 3 years or so. And
was it, Bill, let me interrupt just for a second. So
Sure.
When you are coming from your background in Nebraska, or your hometown there, and then moving to Ashland, Kentucky, was there much of a culture shock, or people did things differently, or what was your initial assessment of the area?
It was a total culture change. It seemed like where we grew up, it was just a different atmosphere, a rush atmosphere type thing. And when we moved to Ashland, Kentucky, it was more laid back. I mean, people were laid back. Ashland Oil was laid back. I remember I was in sales in Nebraska and come out to Ashland, Kentucky, and they put me in corporate purchasing. And my boss at that time, it was like, what do we do for entertainment? And back 35 years ago, Ashland, Kentucky was a dry town. There was no alcohol in the city. It was kind of dry and boring. He says, well, and he had a laid back Kentucky drawl. He said, well, on a Saturday night, we'll go to town and we'll go to the laundromat and we'll watch clothes go around in the dryer. So I thought that was kind of funny. And so I was in the purchasing department of Ashland, running the tire end of the purchasing, when they kind of combined that with another department and selected me to run the Ashland fleet of cars. And at that time, Ashland had probably 3,000 cars around the country, from New York to California, Texas to Canada. And it was my job to monitor those cars, and we probably traded 1,000 cars a year or something like that. So that was the job I had, and then
Yeah, tell us about your from there, how things progressed, how you maybe did you meet someone that was a part of the Glockner team, or how did you end up making that lateral move to the organization here?
Being with the Ashland fleet, had the opportunity to do, and I always kind of believed in doing as much business locally as we could, and was dealing with Glockner here in Portsmouth, Glockner Chevrolet, and then we had other employees of Ashland that wanted to buy a Honda or a Toyota, and I would call Andy Glockner. That's the only name I knew. I would call Andy Glockner. Wow. And he'd send me down to the manager of the Toyota store and get them hooked up, and then I backed away from it. And I'd never met Andy, but Marathon purchased Ashland and wanted to know if I wanted to, stay with the new organization, and I would be moving to Findlay, Ohio. And we had just built a new house a year ahead of that time, or somewhere thereabouts. And I was kind of like, no, I really don't want to go to Findlay, because I know what happens. In a year, I'll be like the rest of them. I'll probably be gone.
Right.
And I'll fish out of water. I think I'll stay right here. So I had an opportunity to retire from Ashland, which I did. And then I was up here in Portsmouth at the Glockner dealership having some warranty work done on a vehicle. And I said, I've never met Andy Glockner. Where's his office? And it was like right above the service area. So they directed me up, and I went up and introduced myself to Andy. Told him I had retired. He says, "You're too young to retire." And said we could probably use you. And he called Rick Puckett. I got introduced to Rick Puckett and began a career 22 years ago with Rick Puckett and Glockner Oil Company.
Can I ask, Bill, how old were you upon your retirement with Ashland and having that conversation with Andy?
I was 58 at the time that I had retired from Ashland Oil, and like Andy said, "You're too young to retire." So, and I had to agree. That's quite a few years ago.
That's amazing, Bill. So that's cool. Just out of that conversation, all the opportunity that arose. Were you looking for something like that at all, or what was kind of your state of mind?
Well, at the age of 58, obviously, I was too young to retire, too young to hang it up. Still had my youngest son in college, and so yeah, I was looking for another job, and throughout my life, when I did change from one tire store to another, it was in the hopes of doing something better. I was career minded, but I was trying to better myself at the same time, and this presented itself to the oil company. I accepted it, and 22 years later, here we are.
Or let's continue with the storyline. So I'm guessing you met Rick Puckett, right?
What?
I said you met Rick Puckett was kind of the next step.
That was the first time I met him.
And what was he asking you to do at the time?
Well, he was needing at that time somebody to, like we'll call it a sales manager. He had sales people on the road, and trying to handle it himself, the sales and the operations of the company, and asked me if I would want to be a sales manager overseeing the sales process. And obviously it's another career enhancement. So yes, I did. I took it, and
obviously Rick saw that talent in you. What do you think were some of the keys to success in rural America? How do you sell someone like in this area, this demographic?
Well, I think the basic theory in sales is knowing people, being able to communicate with people, let them know that you are sincere in your relationship with them, and doing for the customer maybe what somebody else won't do, and it solidifies that relationship. And the relationship is what keeps you in that customer's place of business.
Yeah, no, I definitely believe that. Especially, you think that's amplified in places like we live, like these more rural environments. Maybe the relationship's a little bit more important than if someone has like a bunch of options necessarily.
Well, I think anywhere if we're in a city or state of like New York, they are run and gun. They're for what they can do, what you can do for them at the time, and then they forget about you. Relationships in the Midwest, which I think Ohio's still in part of the Midwest, relationships are the key to your success. Take care of the customer, and they will take care of you. The relationship with your vendor determines how the vendor is going to react to you. I became the vendor, the salesman. So it's my responsibility to understand the customer's needs, fill those needs, and then follow up with whatever happens down the road with a question or a problem or whatever.
What were your first impressions of people like Ebb?
When I first met Ebb, I was marveled with Ebb. My dad and several of my uncles were in World War II. I had two of those uncles that were pilots, as Ebb was a pilot in World War II, and just loved him telling me stories of different things that happened to him. And Ebb was he was a marvelous man. I admired him a lot, and of course that followed down through with Andy. Admire him, and now the boys, Tim and Mike and Joe. They're all great great people to be associated with, and had to do this over again, I'd do it all over again, because it's been a real good ride.
That's wonderful to hear, Bill. Yeah, it really is amazing what their families accomplished, which is like, there's a lot of businesses that are profitable and succeed, but like very few businesses that are multi-generation past like 3 generations. Even that's a difficult thing to accomplish, but the 6th generation multi-generational business is like, I'm just like really impressed and enamored with how they've passed down their values from generation to generation, how Ebb was able to influence the people, or like his relatives and family, and the people coming up in the ranks in like a really positive way. How do you think, what did you see any of that, and maybe get like an inkling of how they've accomplished what they've built here?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you watch through their daily life and you understand. And even before I knew the Glockners, and when I was a young fellow starting out in his life, the thing I understood was you're responsible to yourself, you're responsible to God, and the community. And if you take care of those 3 things, it'll come back and take care of you. And the responsibility, it goes beyond just, I think, having a job. You can get a job anywhere, but behind that should be or could be a career. But ultimately, it's the responsibility, like I said, to yourself, your community, and to God.
Yeah, you're touching on something really important there, Bill. Just maybe it goes back to what you were saying about your relationships with your customer base. Like, there's not like oftentimes an immediate reward to investing in your family or in relationships, but it's like that long-term relationship cost and doing those important things that may be viewed by many as like an inconvenience, to their job or things like that. But because, and you can see it in the reflection in the Glockners and people like yourself, Bill, that long-term commitment to doing the right thing actually reaps a giant reward,
That's exactly right. And to follow somebody that is a pillar in the community. One person myself, I can't live to suffer all the problems and consequences. You learn from watching others. I mean, their actions, what led them to success, and you pattern yourself after a leader and after a pillar in the community, and try to achieve equally as they did.
When you mentioned your conversation with Andy Glockner, you said you were trying to, advance in business and in a career, but you were also working on yourself at the same time. And I like that you said that, because they're connected,
Yes, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I don't know how to elaborate on that, but in the conversation with Andy, the first conversation when I met him, it was like, what do you want? How are you expecting? What do you want to do? And it is... I viewed if by chance I got the opportunity to go to work for Glockner's, and it turned out I did a Glockner Oil company, I have a responsibility that, like I said, beyond myself. It's to the Glockner Oil Company and the Glockner family. And to me, that is a very important relationship, that I represent the family and the company I'm working for like I would want to be represented out there. It's a complete package right there.
I think what you're conveying is that you took responsibility of your role and really took ownership of the organization. Like that, you were not just like an employee, but almost like a partner in what they're doing here.
Well, yes, and I think that's what separates a lot of employees and or people in this world. If I had addressed Glockner Oil Company as just a job, that's probably what it would have been, and I might have lasted a few years and been gone, because they would have lost interest in me, I would have lost interest in them, and it could have come to an end. But that was my life, that was my career, and I'd done my very best every day to make sure that I'd done what was expected of me and went beyond what was expected of me. And you put yourself into the role of being a part of the organization, not just a job.
Well said, Bill. How have you seen your organization and just Glockner in general evolve since you've been there? Are there any like memorable projects that you were involved in, things that you felt like helped build the business and move things forward?
Certainly. I think some of the bigger ones are like some of our accounts where we have the installation of oil handling products, the tanks, the pumps, the reels, oil guns. Where I was at, I am specifically helping a customer to get him what he needs, but not oversupply what he doesn't need. He doesn't need a 500-gallon bulk tank to pour 50 gallons of oil a year. You buy it in a drum. He may wish to have the drum, the 500-gallon tank, but you explain to him and show him, there is a reason for bidding tanks that size and the volume and all that stuff that's related. It all comes together.
But yeah, anything else you're thinking when you're thinking of projects that you were involved in at Glockner? How have you seen things change?
Yeah, things have changed in that respect. There was a time when I first started at Glockner's that if we picked up a new account, a trucking company, and he needed various tanks and various whatever, back in the day, the oil companies, if you could get them on Shell products, you put in the equipment and Shell would pay for the equipment. So that was pretty much a no-brainer. You just go ahead and put it in. The oil companies, through their own greed or whatever, they were doing less and less of the supplying of the equipment. So the perception there is, do we continue to supply that level of equipment at the Glockner Oil Company expense? Somebody's got to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of evolved from us doing all that for free to where we put it into the customer and they pay us for it at the time of the installation. That is, doesn't sound like much, but that is a huge conversion from, and you're talking several $1,000s worth of free equipment to the customer versus you paying for several $1,000s.
Well, going through that transition, maybe this is part of that, like a relational teaching moment, Bill. How are you explaining to them this additional cost and keeping that relationship strong, even through something like that, where all of a sudden, you're having to pay like they're having to pay these additional costs?
Well, I think in a very simplified format, my way of presentation was to the customers, look, here's what I see. We put in all this new equipment, several $1,000s, and it takes us a period of years, several years, to pay for that through depreciation and whatever. In the meantime, maybe you get tired of looking at me, maybe you think I messed you over, or you get tired of Glockner's, whatever reason, you throw us out. And then we've got that equipment issue. We got to pick up the equipment, and you're hanging here with no oil, no grease, until you can find somebody else that will come in and replace it. My idea is it's your shop. You purchase the equipment, and we'll set it up so that you can pay for it over a period of time, a year or whatever you want. But then you get tired of looking at me or think we messed you up or whatever happens, you throw us out. All you have to do is call another supplier, and he's filling your tanks. Nothing changes for you,
Wow.
Which I think is a huge benefit. But you got to sell the guy on that one.
Well, that is like an excellent proposal, actually, Bill.
Exactly.
Just to make them aware of the ownership, because I'm sure initially everyone's like, whoa,
Yeah, so no, I'm not going to buy it because old Fred down the road here, he's trying to get in here too, and he'll put it in for free. I said, sir, there are no free lunches. Somewhere somebody is paying for it. And you know as well as I do, the customer's the end of the road, you're paying for it. I don't know how it's camouflaged, but you're paying for it.
Yeah, Bill. I really like that. That is a clinic on sales right there, my man. That's good stuff. Okay, yeah. Just another thought I had for you. The purpose of the podcast here is to tell small town success stories, and people like you are at the forefront of what we're trying to do, Bill. That here you are, like moving from like your hometown across the country to a small town, rural America, and being exponentially successful. I mean, a long-term career where you made something for your family, put your kids through school, and that's like the exact kind of people that we want to highlight with this, Bill. So do you have anything else, like looking back on your career, what can you say about what's helped you be successful, and like what kind of advice do you have for people that are trying to accomplish the same thing, like prospering in rural America?
Well, I think, and that's what I've done, and not saying it's right or wrong, but that's what I've done. If there's something that I see, like when I was in the tire store and I saw the salesman come in and do his little thing and get back in his company car and drive off down the road, I knew that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be one of those guys. You find a way and you work your way, and I'm lucky because I built a relationship with that salesman, who then asked me to replace him as a salesman. But set your sights and then go for it. There's not too much going to come to you in this world. You got to go after it. But keep your nose clean and work hard, and I think things will come your way.
Dirty hands, clean money, man. I think that's
that's something like that. Yes.
But I like what you're touching on, Bill, which is essentially like just the relational aspect of all of this. Like a lot of business that show Mad Men. I love when Roger says a lot of business just comes down to I don't like that guy.
Yeah.
It really is. It really does come down to like building a common interest with the people around you and showing that you're a friend and have their best interest at heart as a customer or a coworker.
Well, what you're talking about relates right back to that equipment story we were just talking about. You show, as a salesperson, you show the benefit to the customer why we're asking you to do this. And if you believe what you're telling me, it's just not something you're coming up with some kind of a crap story. But if you believe that it's right for him and you relay that conversation to him, he believes and he will do what you're asking.
Yeah, and I hope that's what we continue to accomplish at Glockner, Bill, is, they have this amazing, rich history of people that put relationships first, that were servants of the community and had the best interest of their employees and customers at heart. And that's what we want to continue moving forward. A lot of car dealers, a lot of people in business are, kind of come off like they're trying to, I think, manipulate their customer base into buying something. But we want to be an alternate or the complete opposite of that narrative, and instead like invite people to be a part of what we're doing and show them like our success is your success and we're a part of the same community, the same narrative, and we're on the same team.
Exactly. And then maybe it's a lesson along that line. When we made that move from Nebraska to Ashland, Kentucky, Ashland Oil referred us to a real estate agent. Obviously, you got to have somebody find you a home. And he's showing us, everything we had a real estate book, and looking through there, said, man, it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. Hey, we got this in the handle. Pick out 2 or 3 houses, and he's like shaking his head, said, no, I don't think so. So we drive to one of them, and as we're going to it, he says, roll down your window. And you roll down the window and there's water running down the creek or down the greater ditch. He said, that's not water, that's sewer. And you don't want to be in this community, because it's open, it's whatever. So he's showing us different things, kind of getting us acclimated to where we're going to trust what he ends up showing us. And one comment he made when in his efforts to sell us a house, he said, I can sell you a house tomorrow, but I don't want to do that. I want to sell you a home that in 5 years, when you see me on the street, you can still thank me for that house.
Wow.
It isn't like there's that son of a gun that sold us a shack that's nothing but trouble. And that taking care of that customer is the key to the whole thing.
Bill, let me ask you, man, what are you excited about in retirement?
Well, we've talked about that at the house, and it's like it's coming to a chapter in my life where we turn the page, and I don't know what's written on the other page. I don't know yet. But the fact that I think right now is it's going to be exciting for me when it's 10 degrees outside and snowing and blowing, that I don't have to get out in that tomorrow morning and travel. I don't have to do that. And the cold weather, it's just going to be indoors for a period of time. And then spring will open up and there's plenty of work to do. But I think I've done this stuff for 55, 56 years. And I think it's time now for, while we're in good health, for me and my wife just to get out and do some traveling or do something that we want to do instead of, and that's all I've done in my life, pursuing this career that we've been talking about. I don't hunt, don't fish, don't golf, and none of that. I don't have any hobbies because work has been my hobby, and I enjoy and I love what I'm doing, and it's rewarded me to where you continue to love what you're doing.
Wow. Yeah, Bill. Well, you've certainly earned it, man. And I'm confident that with the quiet man action that you are, when you do flip this new chapter and you stare at a blank page, you're gonna write something cool, man, for sure.
Well, I expect to
your wife,
enjoy the next chapter. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, thanks so much for joining me, man. And we're grateful for what you've done here at Glockner.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. And the last 22 years with Glockner, for anybody that's interested, it has been a wonderful ride for 22 years. I couldn't expect any more and receive any more love and appreciation than the Glockner family.
My favorite thing that Andy Glockner has ever told me, is just relating to like how he thinks they've been successful here, is just surround yourself with good people.
Exactly, 100%. That's what I said. You look for the pillar in the community that you want to pattern yourself after. Look for somebody that's going to take you down a proven path versus some unknown path that you don't want to travel or wish you hadn't got on that road when you know better in the first place.
Sure. Well, we got your truck loaded up with Bernie G. You're set for at least a week here, Bill.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Portsmouth,